So we're starting from the application we built in the previous video, and we're going to show you first how to customize the UI a little bit. Over here you can actually upload a logo for your application like that, and you can also change the title of the application, which doesn't actually need to match the name of the application, so just type whatever text you want in here. You can fix any spelling mistakes you might have done. Another thing that you can customize are the menus up here. Okay, so you have the edit menu button over here, and for each one of the buttons you can go in and remove it or customize it. For example, let's switch the icon on one of those. Okay. Another thing you can do is add menu items. So there's a bunch of existing pages that you can directly call by just dragging it over, or you can, for example, call an external page. So let's say you have some info page or documentation page you want to call. You can just add a button, set an icon, set the URL for the other page you want to show, so maybe that's your manual or any other URL, and there you go, you have a new menu option. If you actually run the application right now, you would see the nice look and feel with the icon, the buttons, menu, and the logo at the top. Okay, and it works. So let's go and cover some other aspects here back in the design. So if you remember correctly, when we actually edit a conference, one of the fields there is when is this conference actually happening. So let's show you how to add a validation to this field. You actually do this directly in the definition of the field in the data designer. You can actually pick the field, click on the pencil icon, and go and add a validation rule. So, for example, if we want to make sure that the conference that we are putting into the systems are always in the future, we can do it this way. Another way of doing it is saying that the date is after, and then you can actually pick the current date or current time as a system variable over here. Now, when you're adding such a validation, this validation is not actually saved in the database. It's not a constraint in the database. This is actually implemented as a JavaScript in your application, so it's part of your UI. And when you now go in here and, for example, you pick a date in the past, so let's pick, for example, this date, you immediately would get a validation. Okay, so this is a validation on the field level executed this way. Another thing that I would like to show you is, for example, how you can add your own button, okay, and do some validation on it. So to do this, I'm first going to add another field to my conference, which would be the number of attendees in this conference. So this is a number field. And then what I would do is, beyond the fact that you can specify minimum and maximum over here in properties, I'm going to take a little bit of a harder way of doing it and actually add a button just to demonstrate how you add a button and add the logic to the button. So first of all, when you add a button, you can give it a title, you can specify what type of a button this is, for example, whether you want to have just an icon or icon and text, things like that. Okay. And then you can actually specify what action would happen when you click the button. So there's a bunch of built-in things you can do. For example, you can have a button that navigates to another page. Okay, and you can have a button that saves data. I'm going to show you that you can also have a button that actually invokes JavaScript. Okay, so I'm picking up the custom JavaScript code, I'm giving it a description, and then I'm actually going to edit the code here. So we want to make sure if the number of attendees, so we can actually go over here and access this variable, number of attendees. This is one of the objects there. We're going to check whether it's smaller than 20. Okay. So if it's smaller than 20, then we want to actually resolve this as an error. Okay. So as you can see from the description at the top, you need to add a reject function and return something there. Okay. If it's more than 20, we're going to do an else section here. We're going to actually resolve this as okay. And then you can specify what type of result you have in each case. Okay. So now we have kind of a check to see if there's more than 20s. And then over here we can see what to do when each one of the cases happens. So for example, on a success, okay, when it's more than 20, we're going to have an info message that we're adding here that's saying that this conference is approved. Okay, and you can then do another thing in the after that. Okay, in the case where it's rejected, okay, we're going to add an error message. So just for those who didn't catch it, before that what I did is when we actually approve, I also added an operation later on to save the changes. So again, just dragging and dropping that. Okay, so let's run our page. So now we have the number of attendees, and let's set the number of attendees to be 2 and click verify. In this case, we're getting an error, conference too small. Okay. If I actually go and I make the number big enough and I click verify, I get the message conference approved. Now, not only did I get this message, we also actually saved the data. So if I click cancel here, okay, and then I go back into the conference, the data is saved. So this is what the button did. It verified and saved.